when I first came up with the idea to do this video, I wasn't sure where to start it, because I could simply just tell you that I made a text-based video game, which in the end is what I did, but I want to go a little more in depth into how I actually got here. So let's go back a bit. Last year in 2023, on the day after Thanksgiving, I got a call that one of my uncles passed. This was an uncle who I grew up with and played a pivotal role in my childhood. Obviously, I and the rest of the family were pretty devastated. Not only did we lose somebody we love, but happened the day after the day that's meant to give thanks. And this is basically the precursor to what's supposed to be a cheerful holiday Christmas season. Also, during this time, my anxiety issues, which I had gotten a pretty good hold on, were coming back with a vengeance. My panic attack and anxiety issues are triggered by stress. I think it goes without saying that losing a family member is pretty stressful. I've also had some health-related issues that added to the stress pile, but one of my biggest sources of stress, a long-running source that I've been dealing with for a long time, was my job. After you lose a family member, it's pretty hard to stroll back into the office and act like you really care about what's going on. Losing people makes you look at life different. You realize how short it is, and you realize how precious time is, and that time is the most valuable commodity that we have. Late January 2024 marked my 10-year anniversary at that job, and while I was proud that I managed to stay at one place for that long, I knew I was meant to do something more. I was grateful to have employment, and I generally enjoyed the people that I worked with, but the job itself was unfulfilling, and at the time it was undergoing a lot of changes that made an already stressful life even harder to deal with. And corporate, if it ain't broke, they'll still fix it, and when they fix it, it'll end up being worse than what it already was. Now, I had filled out a ton of job applications to other places in hopes that I could just find something better in the meantime, all of which led to rejections or just flat out being ghosted. Fast forward to late February 2024, and I had a panic attack, one of the worst ones I've had in quite some time, and afterwards I decided to take some personal time away from work. I used this time to decompress, to grieve, to pray, and to try to figure out what was I really supposed to be doing in this life thing that we got to wake up to every day. I was also going to therapy, which I had been going to for the past few years. With the personal leave process and PTO that I had saved up, I was able to nearly take about a month off of work, and it was time I really needed to just kind of get my mind right, but boy did it fly by really quick. And near the end of my leave, I had a talk with my therapist, and I knew I wasn't ready to go back to work and deal with that stress again. So I applied for an extension of my personal leave, and I filled out all the proper documents, as did my therapist, but it got denied. There would be no extension, no more time to grieve, no more time to figure things out. They would be expecting me to show my face in that office in the next few days and pick up right where I left off. I knew I wasn't ready to go back into that office, and so this left me with what would be a pretty life-altering decision. Do I go back to the office? Do I go back to the stress, the burnout? I had a 10-year run of data to go off at this point, so if I go back, I know how this story goes. The cycle just repeats itself over and over and over again. Or do I choose myself? Do I choose my mental health, my sanity, and take a leap into the unknown? It would be the first time I'd be leaving a job with no backup plan. I had money in the savings account to hold me over for a little bit, but in this economy, how long is that really going to last? The unknown had a lot of question marks and not enough answers, but I had reached my breaking point after 10 years, and this was a chance I was now willing to take, and so I chose myself. There was no 2-week notice. I made the decision that the next time I came into that building, it would be for me to return all of my equipment, and that's exactly what I did. I logged on to my work laptop the day that I made the decision. I typed up a goodbye email, and on the day that I was supposed to come back to work, I came back, I returned my equipment, and just like that, my 10-year run, it was over. As I said before, time is the most valuable commodity we have. You got to spend it wisely, and most importantly, you got to make it count. I exchanged the comfort of a guaranteed paycheck every 2 weeks for an abundance of time. Now, I wasn't fully sure what my plan was. My savings account wasn't going to hold up for forever, but for now, I did have time on my side, and I was going to do whatever I needed to figure out and plot out my next move. The first thing I did actually didn't have anything to do with creating. I had to get my health back on track. So I got myself back into a workout regimen. Me and my kettlebell are friends again after not speaking so much over the last couple of years. Did a lot of praying, a whole lot of praying, because I knew I was going to need some help from the man upstairs with this one, because this was I was in a doozy, and I started to plot out ideas. I had an urge to create, but what was I going to make? I had to figure out what I was going to make. I'm an author of a self-published short story series called The Oddball Chronicles. I make YouTube videos. I'm a Twitch streamer, a blogger, a podcaster. I've got enough skills to make something, but I knew whatever it was that I made, it had to be something better than what I've already done before. And I just needed to figure out what that thing was. Shout out to my Twitch homies. Y'all know who y'all are. We had a lot of Discord calls of us just trying to figure out our next move, because a lot of us were in the same boat. We wanted to make a living creating. We wanted to generate some income from creating. We just weren't really sure how to get there. And we would just throw around ideas, just trying to figure out something that could stick. And I wanted to make volume 3 of the Oddball Chronicles, and I tried. I tried more than a few times, but I never liked anything that I wrote. And so I moved on to other ideas. I tried resurrecting a few older stories that I had started but never finished. And I would write, but nothing. It would just lead to a dead end. I kept streaming and kept putting out YouTube content. My Twitch streams were actually getting better, but it didn't often lead to money. And YouTube, as y'all know, was an entirely separate beast in and of itself. But I was still determined to figure something out, to make something shake. And in the middle of trying to figure all of this out, life decided it wasn't done yet, and it was going to take another swing at me. In July 2024, I lost another uncle, one who I'd also grown up with. And honestly, for the sake of this video, I haven't even talked about all of the loss that I've seen and endured during the pandemic. But I can just say my uncle was on a long list of people who I came into the year with who are no longer here. And the stress, the grief, that was all piling up again. And I don't know, for a moment time just kind of stood still. I watched my uncle's funeral virtually from home, and I got a chance to hear stories from, his childhood friends, and it was kind of bittersweet, but if there was a silver lining, it was good to see that, he was loved and cared for while he was here. And he left a lasting impression on everybody that he met. Grief is a weird thing, man. It can hit you out of nowhere at the most unexpected times, just like life kind of can. But just as the worst of times can happen unexpectedly, so can the good. Sometimes God throws you a little lifeline, and you might not even recognize it as a lifeline at first. It won't always happen the way you expect, but it'll get there in the moment that you need it most. And just a few days after watching my uncle's funeral, I would get my lifeline and the spark that I needed. During this time, I hadn't been applying to jobs much. I was pretty defeated after all these rejections, and I just kind of didn't see the point. I really wanted to make my own way. I wanted to create my own path. I didn't want to do the traditional 9-to-5 anymore, but I didn't feel like I had the tools to really do what I wanted to. And then one day a tool just kind of fell in my lap. I wanted to escape the world of customer service and do something that could lean more into my creative talents. And after not applying for jobs for a pretty good minute, I applied to a narrative writing job on a whim to a video game company. Now, spoiler alert, I did not get the job, but I did gain a valuable piece of information that they mentioned on the application. And that information was a narrative writing software for games called Ink. You might also hear it referred to as Inky or Inkle. And don't worry, I'll put a link to that software in the description below if you are interested. Now, I'm not going to get into the technical side of it too much, but basically, Ink lets you create narrative scripting for video games, and it comes with this pretty extensive manual. Gives you all the tools that you need to at least be competent in its basic functions. And I'm sure people in the industry, knew about this software, but for me as an outsider, I didn't know something like this existed. So I dove headfirst into the software for about 8 or 9 hours straight. I just practiced trying to just get a hold of the fundamentals. Now, I'm not really a tech savvy person, and this software involves a level of coding that I had to familiarize myself with, but just through practicing for hours and hours on end, I created like these little different mini video game scenarios that kind of involved branching flows of dialogue, things like approaching a merchant and making a choice on what to buy, talking to an NPC about a side quest, choosing gear before a major battle. And after about 3 or 4 days of practicing, I felt like I had a basic understanding of the software, and even without knowing some of the more intricate functions that it could do, I felt like I could make something out of this. And giving a creative a new toy to play with will light a fire under them like anything else, and I am no different. But I had to figure out what was I gonna make with this new toy that I came across. And then a light bulb moment happened. I have a little black book that I keep nearby. It's a little journal that I use to write down all of my ideas for potential creative projects that one day, that I hope to do. And in 2022, I had an idea that I wrote down that I wanted to create a book, but it would be interactive, one where the reader would have like some kind of agency as to what happened in the story. But back when I wrote the idea, I didn't really know how I was going to execute it. So the idea just stayed an idea up until now. With this Ink software, I was like, oh no, I can actually do this now. I have a tool that's going to make this work. And that brings us to where we are today. Since July, I've been working day in and day out like a madman, creating an interactive text-based game made up of 2 short stories, each with multiple endings. And you, the reader, will get to make pivotal decisions during certain parts of the story that can alter the final outcome. The project is called Conundrum Collection, and it will be releasing on January 7th, 2025 on itch.io. It's a text-based game that you can play in your web browser, on a desktop PC or laptop. It is 2 standalone stories, both of different genres and original characters, created by yours truly. This is the hardest thing I've ever had to write. This has been my labor of love over the last however months it's been. This was not only hard because, of course I had to write it myself, edit it myself because I couldn't afford an editor. Had to make the cover art myself, which if you know me, I'm not good at creating art of any kind, but I had to do that myself, and I had to teach myself a new software. Not only was it hard because of that, but I had to create this during a time when life was just really just kind of piling on me. But this was like the one thing I had to kind of keep me focused and kind of keep me on some kind of path. But this is easily the hardest thing I've ever had to work on. Writing multiple endings, it doesn't sound that hard in theory, but once you actually try to do it, it's like, oh my god, this is I thought I was like, I'm in over my head, this is crazy. But I got it done. It is a real thing, and it is about to be out very soon, and y'all will get to play it, y'all will get to interact with it, and hopefully y'all will get to enjoy it. Once again, Conundrum Collection will be available for purchase on January 7th, 2025 on itch.io. All relevant links will be in the description of this video, and I hope to see y'all there when it comes out. My name is Serial Sensei. Y'all stay safe, y'all stay hydrated, and I'll see you on release day. All right, boom, 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 boom. Let's go. No, I missed it. Hey, nah, they played me. And nah, I missed the whole updraft, bro. Nah, they played me. That's
crazy.